today. Check that out, dude. Pretty soon we're going to be able to weave it.
You got muscles in your hair.
I got to do the same thing after this afternoon. It's brutal.
No, you should grow that out, man.
No, hell no, man.
Yeah, some burns. Some burns.
No.
Get the Elvis look going.
Yeah. Well, we're here.
I was kind of waiting for Ted, but he may be occupied.
We actually have a deal. Do you want
There's Ted.
Ted, come on, man.
Sorry, whooping down my Pop-Tarts.
Look at me all engaged, Tenny.
Well, you're doing good.
Engaged.
Ted will hook up his iPhone in a second.
Couldn't get up and work out today. That sucked. Look at that. Suda. Where's the cap?
The who?
Talk to us about the $7,000 cap. Teach us something today.
We're going to go into that. We got an hour and a half.
Hour and a half? What?
Yep. Till 10:30.
All right. Well, yeah.
First, I want to hear about a win or a loss.
That's a pretty long meeting.
I start every meeting with a win or a loss. This is not a meeting. This is a class.
Class. Okay.
And classes are typically 3 hours long, so this is a half class.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you don't remember college, do you, Mike? I know. It was too long ago. Start with wins or losses. And the reason I do this is because I want you to be going out there during the week and looking for a situation where, oh, geez, if I had just known this, I could have done this. Or, hey, I used something he taught me and I did this. And I want you to share something like that, something that you ran into during the week, if anybody's got one.
I got one.
Go ahead.
It was really last week, obviously, but a client of mine has been asking me to agent a record their health insurance. We control the PNC. It's an account called D&E Pump. They have a hardware store, a True Value hardware store also. They're north of Melbourne, and essentially they've had some they fired their agent on everything except the health insurance, and so they've been pushing me to agent record the health. And basically I kind of said, hey, let's talk about a different structure of maybe bundling everything together and lowering your overall liability as an organization, and kind of maybe adding some resources that'll help you mitigate employment related issues. And they said, okay, that's great. We'd love to hear more about that. Long story short, we got we have the pain in that they want to fire the current agent on everything. First of all. Secondly, the second pain is that they're having cost control and HR related issues because they're not big enough to hire an full-time HR person. So we got all the data Friday for all of the quote for a PEO.
Careful about naming names, because I know Ted's over there Googling the company right now.
Really? Are you serious? Don't worry. My relationships are pretty solid. So might be a waste of your time.
Is that what you're doing, Ted?
Nope. That is not what I was doing.
Okay. By the way, Ted is in North Atlanta area.
Awesome.
Near Cumming, Georgia. And he is helping me teach this class because he and I together have about, 10,000 years experience in PEO.
It seems that way for sure. Thanks,
We've
Will.
been doing it a while. Yeah, a year or two.
So we got the data, and we're going to go over it today to get it to market. And
so it's a win.
It should be. We should easily be able to put this deal down.
I like the idea that
they want us to agent a record the health insurance, and I told them, hey, we need to go another route.
So what questions did you ask to get the pain?
What questions?
Yeah. How
Nothing
did you get the
really.
pay?
I didn't ask any questions. They asked me to agent a record their health insurance, so I said, no, I'd rather write it under a different structure.
How many employees?
30 to 40.
Okay. What if, haven't you found out that anything you can say as a statement, you can also phrase as a question?
Of course.
I mean, have you found this? Do you find that people are more impressed with the questions you ask than the things you tell them?
No,
Really?
not really.
Well, when you ask them a question, aren't they being engaged? Aren't they now having to participate in the conversation?
Well, it depends on which situation I am. If I'm selling, then I'll often sell against different sales approaches. So I'll do an upfront contract with them talking about how everyone else is going to ask a bunch of stupid questions and do this and that. And really, you just want to know what time it is. You don't want to sit there and be asked 4,000 questions.
But everybody thinks that their business is different, don't they?
Yes.
So don't you want to know what the differences are?
Yeah, I mean, on this particular case, I do, because we went through the consultative process on the PNC to agent a record everything. So I feel pretty certain that we understand the account's been a client for 2 years. So we understand the situation.
There's two rules that I was taught. And if you can add any of these, I'd like to hear them. But the first rule is the 70-30 rule, where we should be talking 30% of the time, listening 70. Have you heard that one?
Yep.
And the other one is that the Sandler rule says that a client who is not talking is not buying. Have you found that? I mean, have you been in a situation where somebody's just staring at you and then finally they say, thank you for your time, and away you go? Anybody? You get an email that says, I'd like to thank you for all the work you did, but we're going a different direction.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed have you noticed that when they start thanking you, that means it's over?
Yeah.
When they thank you for your time, that means they aren't buying. That's kind of my rule, isn't it? So it used to get me angry, but now I don't get emotionally involved, and I say, you're very welcome. And I'm sure the situation would be reversed. By the way, since you now know what we do, you must know 3 or 4 other people we could talk to who we might be able to help. Would you please introduce me, and I promise them I'll treat them the same way as I treated you. Would that be okay? It doesn't always work, but what do you got to lose at that point? So you lost the deal, so you might as well, you never had the deal. So I figure I never had the deal. I might as well see if I can get some referrals. And I have gotten some. So it's but I definitely hate, I don't know, I just hate those. Well, thank you for your time. If I hear that, like, uh-oh, that's the door closing.
John, I want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, very much. I'm sure you would do the same for me.
Well, there's the flip side of that. When we're using an argument, if we put that line out to somebody else, my thought is I need to be aware anytime I say that to somebody. It's like, the kiss off line. Yeah,
I'm careful when I thank someone for their time. I realize that now that I do it too. You're right. I'll tell them this means I'm not interested.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't do that anymore. I'll say, like, look, I'm very interested to hear what you did. It doesn't look like we're a match now. Maybe sometime in the future. But in the meantime, do you know anybody? I mean, I'll end up asking for referrals. Because Matt, as you will find out, this business thrives on referrals. It's very difficult to cold call everybody. I was going to go into this a little bit, and Ted, you can jump in if I get off track. When I first started the business, I went out going after walking into places, restaurants, stores, little offices that are in strip malls and things like that, and just trying to talk to them about their payroll and their workers' comp. because that's what I was taught. I didn't know much. My hit rate was way less than 1%. I'd say I probably got 5 clients out of 10,000 walk-ins or something like that. All our clients were coming from our website and from the occasional agent that would call us up and say, can you get me comp for somebody I can't get comp for? And then we'd start getting referrals from the clients we had, and they would say, hey, thanks for helping us, so-and-so needs it. And those were passive referrals. We weren't asking for them. And so as a result, we grew fast in the beginning because it was 2005, which was right after the hurricanes. And, everybody was looking for workers' comp after the hurricanes because you had all the storm chasers down here. So we grew fast, but when it started to slow down, I realized that I needed to find new ways to get business. So I started learning to ask for referrals and ask, especially like, who's your insurance agent? I will ask people that. Who's your CPA? And I'll try to arrange a meeting with their insurance agent or their CPA. And I don't think is that a conflict for you, Mike, or can you do that?
Insurance agent? No, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I think our insurance agent distribution will be limited to very select folks. We're not interested in having 1,000 of them, but there's going to be folks that, because hopefully of our reputation, are just going to want to use us, but it will be selective, very selective.
Good.
CPAs, we'll be going after all those heavily. Probably the one that will have a strategic alliance with will be one called Witham, Smith and Brown.
It's a nice name. Sounds very British.
Yeah.
Witham, Smith and Brown. Yes.
I don't know if they smoke pot.
No, let me drink my coffee with the.
Oh.
And I was trying to show drink. It looked like I was doing it. Oh, smoking a fatty. Not legal yet.
Right, smoking a fatty?
Yeah, CPAs are more difficult to deal with because they don't want to share anything.
Yeah, they're tough. They're tough referral resources for sure.
And they have their favorite people, and it's very hard to change them to go from their favorite people.
Yeah, no doubt.
They're very, very rigid, I've noticed. But I do have some CPAs I get referrals from, but I have I write about 15 checks a month to agents. So that's how many have referred me business that I actually have running right now. So yeah, you're right. I don't need 1,000, but even though my list has over 2,000 on it that I do a blast email once, I hardly ever do it anymore, like once a quarter.
You probably get a lot of crappy deals from them.
Yeah, some of it is crap. Most of what agents bring you is, hey, I got this 3-man roofer. Can you get him comp?
Yeah.
Or I got this startup staffing company. They have no experience. They've never worked in the field.
Just write it.
Yeah, can you get him covered?
Go to Southeast, right?
Well, Southeast will write anything for the right amount of money, but they're not the right place to go. I mean, we moved more people away from Southeast than we put with them.
I bet.
So, and they're okay with that. I mean, I've talked with John Palekis and that's his name, Palekis, something like that.
Close enough.
And Dave Tanner, who's the CFO there. And I had they stole a client from me, and I called him up. I said, this is my client, and one of your internal guys just stole it and is paying himself on it. And said, well, we can't change that. All you got to do, why don't you just take him and put him with another PEO for a while? Then if you want to, bring him back and we'll pay you. So, okay. Anything else before we get into today's discussion?
Well, I like one of the old models from Staff Leasing. Were you the one that used to follow their delivery courier around when they were taking checks out?
No.
And the addresses?
I could see John doing that.
No. I'm too lazy to do that. Are you kidding? I hate driving. I'm not gonna follow someone.
Yeah, he won't drive 10 minutes for a meeting.
Now, I did go to the 7-Eleven down here a couple times at 6 o'clock in the morning when all the landscapers and everybody are there filling up the gas tanks, the gas for the mowers and everything. And I handed out a bunch of cards there, but nothing ever came out.
Now, on the back of your card, you still have a workers' comp cert pre-printed on there?
Now, the guy from, I think I know who did that. It was a guy from ELS that was following the staff leasing delivery around. It's because Billy Mullis got kicked out of staff leasing. When they became Jevity, he was like hostile takeover. He was pushed out.
Like Brett Masters?
I don't know his story at all, and I don't really want to. You don't need to ever bring up his name again if you don't know. But he would, first of all, one thing, Brett only knows how to type in capitals. You notice that? Every email he gets is, "John, call me. Let's set up a meeting."
He's very serious about his emails. Very serious.
He's working for Paul now, right?
No, he's gone. Paul
He's left.
I told you. I can't keep up with all those yo-yos. That'd be a full-time job. I got my own problems. See that guy in the orange shirt on this call? I got my own problems.
Tim Russell told me that he wouldn't piss on his head if his hair was on fire. So
I actually agree with that.
He sued him several times. I guess.
I don't think I probably would. I got a big heart, so I probably would piss on him.
Well, that's nice. Glad to.
It'd be a long piss, though.
Yeah.
It'd be like when you're a little kid aiming all over the place. Oh, I got him in the eye.
I'm recording this.
Oh, I got him in the eye.
This is being recorded,
Oh, okay. Sorry. Send it out to all my fans.
Yeah. Okay. Let's return to some semblance of professionalism. So no, I do remember that the one guy from staff leasing told me.
Are they still alive? Staff leasing?
Yeah, they're called TriNet now.
Oh.
Staff leasing became Jevity, then became TriNet.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that.
And I remember one of the guys from ELS telling me he would follow around the staff leasing guys and go into the place they called on right after them. I didn't know he was following the courier. I thought he was following the salesman.
Call from.
Ted, you want to mute? There, I'll mute you. Go ahead. You muted, Ted. Go ahead. So.
All right. What are we learning?
All right. We're gonna go back to.
So far, I learned. Thank you for your time. Is there 3 or 4 other people that could help us?
This is review. Everybody knows this, right?
No, we don't.
You don't.
Well,
if you're running payroll, this is what the employer's expenses are. And the Florida, the 2.7, that's the startup SUTA in Florida, and 0.6 is the designated discounted federal unemployment.
So correct me if I'm wrong, John. Every PEO has the same FUTA in every state.
FUTA, yes.
But SUTA is different because each PEO can have separate companies to manage the state unemployment claims.
Well, I don't want to get too much into it, but back when, when Obama got elected, he put this thing in to try to collect FUTA from the states that weren't paying their share.
Okay.
And several states decided they just would stop paying their share of the federal, because the federal unemployment is actually 6%. But if the state pays their share, they discount it to 0.6 for the employers. And at one point, Florida's was actually up to 1.5 when Charlie Crist was in business.
But can we go back to SUTA for a second?
SUTA. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about FUTA.
Does SUTA vary per PEO?
John,
Well-
can I jump in? SUTA is the only payroll tax you pay that's a variable rate based on your personal experience.
Okay.
The state wants you to have 8% of your payroll in escrow. Pay 2.7 for 3 years, then you become experience rated based on that reserve balance. If you have claims and you drain that balance out, your rate can go up to 3 or 4%.
Unemployment claims.
Unemployment claims, yes.
So how does a PEO manage that? Because their SUTA varies, right?
Everybody's SUTA varies after
Okay.
the 3 period. It's
Okay.
based on reserves or the claims experience as a percentage of payroll. So if you control the claims, then your rate will come down. If you
Gotcha.
don't control your unemployment claims, they're charged against your account. Your rates go up. So
how do they control the claims? How does a PEO control the unemployment claims?
You respond timely to any claim that's been filed for unemployment.
Is there a
actually-
best practice? Is there a best practice that you've formulated to help a PEO or an employer manage unemployment claims?
Yes. Take your hardware store, for example. Let's say they had 5 locations. Those unemployment claims could be sent to any of the 5 locations. Then they're going to forward them back into headquarters if they do that at all. You only have 7 days to respond.
Okay.
With a PEO, with everything centralized, they're the address of record for that SUTA account. So the claims are going to come directly to the PEO. They're in a much better position to respond timely for those unemployment claims.
Can I add on to that, Ted?
Sure.
That's good stuff. Thanks, Ted.
But even before that, when the PEO comes in, they started instituting and implementing policies and procedures which can help eliminate unemployment claims. One thing, they implement termination procedures where remember now the PEO is the employer of record, so it's their SUTA that gets affected, not the employer. And they'll say
So when the PEO is the employer of record in a co-employment situation, the PEO is taking on the SUTA experience.
That's right.
So, but when they roll back out, do they go under their old experience, or is it like
start over?
They start over. So, what is the rate that they start over at?
2.7.
Okay.
Now, Florida does have a rule where you can use client SUTA. And so that way they can keep it if they've got a good SUTA. But all the PEOs I know, they have a separate company which does client SUTA. They'll have several PEOs, and one of them will be the client SUTA company. If people want to keep their client SUTA, they'll go with them. But remember that the whole idea is to prevent the unemployment claim. So there's a lot more, there is dealing with, reaction, but there's also prevention. If you go in and tell people that you're not terminating anybody, we're going to do it.
Okay.
I'll give you a story. I had a lady, her name was Northa. She was working for me, and we hired her. She was
Northa?
Northa. Yeah, that's her name. Never mind. She was in our wedding. She was a pretty girl. She was what's that? What, I'm forgetting the name.
Keep going.
When they can sign for
Please.
Power of attorney?
not that. What's the notarize? She was a notary.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm having a senior moment there. So she was a notary, so we hired her to sign all our accords. But she was also supposed to be the sales manager. She never did any selling. And she said, well, I thought I was just a manager. I was going to manage salespeople. I didn't know I was going to sell. I go, the sales manager has to sell. And I was about ready to fire her. And I was on the phone with Tom Natoli, who's the owner of Integrity, who was my PEO. And he said, well, you can't fire her. I said, why not? Because she's my employee, not yours. I'll take care of this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're the employer of record. So I said, what should we do? And he said, give me a list of the things you want her to do. Give me a list of 10 things you want her to do in the next week. So I wrote down on an email 10 things I wanted her to do, and I sent it to him And they called her up and said, listen, your employer is concerned about your performance. He has these 10 tasks that he would like you to perform. And I was right in the room. I heard the whole thing. You know, she was on speaker with the HR lady at Integrity. And she promised that she could do all 10. And she would get all 10 done in a week. And of course, she went back to her old tricks, which was she was spending most of her time texting her daughter or not coming in at all. I found out I had to be in there at 8 if I wanted her to be there at 8. And so she was wasting my time. But
isn't that a bitch?
yeah, so they called her a week later and they went through the list and she had done one of them, which was the easiest one, you know. And they said, well, you're 1 out of 10. What do you think we should do here? She goes, well, I probably don't belong in this position. And they said, well, what would you like to do? She goes, well, I'd like to resign and take a new position. And they said, that'd be fine. We will credit you your 2 weeks, vacation as your 2 weeks notice if you'd like. And you can, like, it was a Thursday, said you could make tomorrow your last day and go find your new job. And of course, she already had a new job lined up, which they always do, right? So the next day we had a going away party and we're still friends. You know, they handled it really well. Whereas if I had fired her, I'm sure she would have filed unemployment against me. But they convinced her that she was failing to perform. They gave her option of either resigning or being fired for cause. So she resigned, went to her new job, and we're still friends. So I look at that as that was easy. That's what a PEO can do. And that's why if you're talking to somebody that's got a lot of turnover and they're getting unemployment claims, you tell them, first of all, they never need to worry about unemployment claims again, at least not as much, because it's the PEO's job responsibility.
Yeah, I'm glad we're staying on this page because that's significant. Because especially in like the restaurant industry, which we do a lot of work in, and Matt knows this, that the turnover is extremely high. And I did not know that the PEO took on the SUTA.
And do you know that the biggest problem those PEOs have is that the restaurant managers fire people anyway without asking?
Correct. Oh yeah, it's a shit show. Yeah.
They have to go in and bring the person in and say, listen, you weren't really fired. He doesn't have the authority to fire you. And they put them in separate rooms. I've actually been the mediator for these before. I'll go in and talk to one person, then I'll talk to the other, then I'll bring them together and go, listen, this is what's going on. Do you really want to stay working here? No. Well, would you like to resign, or do you want us to fire you for violating your employment agreement?
Well, let me
go ahead, Ted.
Mike, we've just met, but do you always ask a client what their mod is on their workers' comp?
Yeah.
All right. Do you ask them what their SUTA rate is?
I'm going to. Well, this is why we're having this call. So
yeah, this is eye-opening. It's awesome.
It's very, So, but each PEO though, now there could be PEOs with a bad SUTA rate though too, just like a bad mod, right?
What you'll notice is the PEOs don't ever quote a high SUTA unless they think the client is a high risk.
Okay. Yeah, they're going to eat it. They're going to eat the SUTA rate. If they're over 2.7, with their size of payroll, it would be really hard for them to have over a 2.7 just from the size of their payroll.
So can they ever quote over the state standard SUTA rate? Just
they can quote whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
See, now that's what I was going to get into next, but since you went there, let's talk about that. The PEO quotes based on all those numbers, but the PEO is not collecting SUTA from you. They're collecting employment expense. They're not collecting comp premium from you. They're collecting employment expense. It's their comp policy. It's their SUTA rate. They're paying SUTA and they're paying comp premium, but what they collect from the client is just employment expense.
What SUTA are they paying? Oh, whatever their rate is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like comp, whatever their experience mod is.
Yeah. There's an arbitrage there.
So SUTA is an important factor.
Ted gets a $10 word there, by the way. Arbitrage. Yeah.
So if you go in, if you're talking to your restaurant or whoever, and their SUTA rate is over, let's say 2%, you know they've got an HR issue there. They've had a lot of claims filed.
Okay, that's
And
good to know.
sometimes if you can convince the PEO that they're willing to take the steps to reduce that, the PEO will charge them 2.7 instead of the 5.4.
Is the steps
whatever
just
they are.
having a very good hiring and exit strategy and performance documentation and stuff like that?
Well, hello. Hello, Mrs. J.
That's my gorgeous secretary.
Yes. Yeah, mine is out at a dentist appointment. She's getting a root canal. She's gonna be fine if you guys know.
We're at headquarters right now. This is headquarters.
Yeah, me too. So let's get back to that. When you're talking to a restaurant or something and saying you're having turnover, you need to ask them the question. And remember, I said always ask questions. Remember that? Say, are you willing to follow the procedures the PEO gives you for hiring and firing? Because if they are, if you follow their procedures, and I'm asking you, Mr. Restaurant Owner, they become convinced of that, they may start you out at a high SUTA, but they'll lower it if you actually follow their procedures.
But this also helps on the workers' comp as well.
Absolutely. I mean, risk management is one of the big, you know, our 5 things, right? The 5 things that Employernomics helps people.
No,
5
I
areas.
don't. Come on,
Okay.
give me the 5 things.
All right, the 5 areas we help employers reduce the cost and risk of having employees. And this is on our website too, under our
Number
our
1.
capability statement. Number 1 is HR compliance.
Okay.
We make sure they have all the right posters, they got procedures, they have an employee handbook that's correct. Okay.
Right.
Number 2 is, workers' comp. We can help them get workers' comp. It's difficult.
Yep.
Number 3 is health administration, benefits administration, things like that.
Yep.
Number 4 is payroll. I mean, there's a lot of liability in payroll. We help them avoid
What's the biggest liability in payroll?
the
Missing
letter
a
from the
paycheck?
IRS.
What?
The letter from the IRS.
What do you mean?
You know, those nice little love letters that say we've noticed some discrepancies in your payroll reports. We want to come in and see all your records.
A deficiency report.
And oh, by the way, you're using QuickBooks? Well, we want to look at your last 6 years QuickBook records. And it's not just the payroll, it's the entire QuickBooks file.
Oh gosh.
So remember that. And then the 5th one is risk management, where we're going to come in and help them reduce the risk.
Love it.
We have
I really
HR.
like that. I like that SUTA discussion a lot because that was very, and so overall it's about 10.95% of their overall biweekly payroll. Each payroll run, they pay 10% of that 10.9, right? In this stuff.
That's the Florida rate. The standard that's what somebody who starts a business is going to pay, whether they're with a PEO or not. But that's when I tell them, when you see PEO prices, remember, you're going to see this number that says like 17, 18%.
Right.
Well, 11 of it's right there. 11 goes to Uncle Donald, or Uncle Florida, or, it goes, most of that goes to it goes to the Med, the Fed, the
Pete
Fed's
Buttigieg. It goes to Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders.
Pete Buttigieg and his boyfriend. Is that where it goes?
It goes to Bernie. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Bernie.
So I heard a great Bernie's joke this week. Bernie Sanders walks into a bar and goes, "Hey everybody, beers on me. Who's buying?"
Free college for everyone.
Who's
I love
buying?
it. My kids they love it. I'd vote for them too if I was them.
Hey, Mike, did we expand your SUTA conversation, or you want one more tidbit?
I'll take. Look, here's the thing. I really like the details of digging down, because one of the things I've found on the insurance side is getting down to the core of the onion is what's going to allow you to find the core of what John calls the pain. So even though my style is different than John, the knowledge of this is critical. So yes, I'll take all your tidbits.
Well, let me throw out one more thing. That 2.7 SUTA rate in Florida, you pay that on the first $7,000 every employee earns.
Yep.
When they hit 7,000, it goes to zero
For that employee.
for that employee.
So let me just repeat this. For SUTA, for the first 7,000 in Florida, you pay 2.7%, and then it goes to zero.
Right.
Now, what about for the PEO? So it would be whatever percentage with the PEO for that first 7,000 of payroll.
Well, now you get to an interesting question. Not all PEOs give the $7,000 cutoff.
What?
Oh yeah, some of them they'll give you a blended rate. Like they say, well, we'll just charge you 1.5.
Those thieves.
Oh yeah.
Well, like Insperity, they're like, instead of 2.7 on the first 7,000,
Wait, who are they?
Insperity.
Yeah.
we'll charge you a half a point, but we'll charge you all year.
Yeah.
We'll call it a rate.
Sounds fair.
It's totally legit. You can pay less now, but just keep paying less.
But
Too legit to quit.
Mike, let me take you in a different direction. What's the average tenure of a restaurant employee?
Oh, geez, probably like 90 days.
Okay. So at 90 days, that employee leaves. You bring in a new employee.
Yep.
You restart the SUTA and FUTA wage base.
Right.
So if your employee tenure is 90 days, you're at 2% of payroll cost just from restarting the wage basis.
So a blended lower rate would make sense for a restaurant, right?
Yeah. So you're at 2.7 for SUTA plus 0.06 FUTA.
Right.
You're at almost 3% additional payroll expense just from turnover.
Just for turnover.
Just from turnover.
Yeah. So a company that will give a blended rate for a restaurant is good.
So knowing how many, okay, so let me ask you a question. You walk into a restaurant, 15 locations, you're with a CFO, you ask them, well, I'm going to ask you, how many of those folks even know what their SUTA rate is?
CFO does.
CFO does.
So he's paying the bill every quarter.
It's on its 940s.
Yeah, 941.
The SUTA's on the 941s?
Yeah, the UCT 6
The
is what you send into the state of
UT6?
Florida. UCT 6. I have no idea what it stands for. Unemployment compensation tax, I think. And then the 941, he sends in, well, okay, Ted, you're right. 941 doesn't have SUTA or FUTA on it. It's just got the social and Medicare and the income.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. The FUTA doesn't get paid till the 940 at the end of the year.
Okay.
But if this guy's working with his accountant knows what his SUTA is. That's when you want to try to get the CPA in there and go, hey, let's talk about your SUTA rate. I mean,
Okay.
Are you getting killed on this 90-day turnover because you keep starting people over? Wouldn't it be nice if we could get you with a PEO that would give you a 1.5 for the whole year?
A 1.5 for the whole year on SUTA or
On SUTA.
on SUTA, yeah.
Yeah, and then let them crunch the numbers on that and see if that saves them money. And it might. It certainly saves them. You know, another thing.
Wait, and they have this. So they have the 7% $7,000 cap outside of a PEO, but there's a chance we got to be careful with PEO. Some will cap it, some won't, right?
Well, no, you have to ask.
Got to
Okay.
ask, okay.
Because some of them do it right up front. Like Integrity, when they quote it, they show.
Matt,
before
are you
cutoff, after
understanding this shit?
cutoff. Huh? So.
Kinda. Okay.
You know,
Taking a lot of notes, I'll tell you that.
This is very interesting stuff.
It is.
Also,
No, yeah.
Because if you're running your own company and if you're in a meeting, regardless of whether you're selling payroll, HR, PEO, I don't even like to say PEO, but if you're selling that, the knowledge of this stuff,
there it is.
to me, brings your acumen to a different level, especially when talking to a CFO. I absolutely love this stuff. Keep going. Sorry.
Let's talk about the quoting.
Okay. One more thing, Will, if I might.
All right, go ahead.
You could get me for an hour and a half today.
And we'll talk more SUTA later while he steps away. I come from the payroll tax area.
Okay.
Here's a rate table. I'll show, and you can look this up. You know, the wage basis, they vary by state.
Right. Okay.
But when I would go in and make a presentation, I would break it out to a cost per employee and say, not controlling your food basis is costing you $150 an employee, $600 an employee. It's going to vary. But when I did the cost per employee, then people understood it.
So did you break that down specifically for the SUDA?
Yes. And then,
Oh my gosh, what the hell is that?
that's
Mr. Richardson. It's Mr. Richardson, right?
No, that was my dad. I'm Ted.
Oh, all right, Ted. Sorry. Sometimes every now and then I might cuss, and I apologize. John hates it, but I get it. I have like Tourette's, so I might, say shit, out of nowhere.
It's no problem. But you're right. You differentiate yourself from the average rep out there. If you can talk about a nuisance tax like SUDA,
Yeah,
and you tie it back to a cost, they're all trying to control their cost.
yeah, no
Control
doubt.
their exposure.
If they can control their SUDA, absolutely. That's especially for restaurants, man. Okay, to me, that's like just big, because if you can even offer with the PEO the tools to mitigate, to help them with their hiring procedures all the way through the employment cycle. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool.
So you can probably figure out why I got into the PEO industry. When I came in as a SUDA tax expert, they just did backflips because I could help PEOs work on their SUDA rates.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Now,
So
you were
anyway-
asking about quotes, Mike. So, see,
What's this? I don't understand before cutoff, after cutoff this is workers' comp now.
no, this is for the comp code. They quote for each code.
That's the sales code.
Yeah, and say like integrity would charge 12.5%, but then 9.8 after the cutoff.
Oh,
See, they took 2.7 out.
but they're not lowering it to zero.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
They took 2.7 out. See,
Oh, gotcha.
they're
Okay.
still charging the admin fee and the comp and the Social Security.
You're looking at this overall.
That's what most PEOs just give you a number. Like for this comp code, this is what we're going to charge you as a percent of payroll.
So what they do, they give you the overall percentage for everything.
Right.
So, but then you ask them to break it out, FUTA, SUDA, right? Comp rate.
Yeah, and now they're not doing that as much anymore, and I'll show you if I have an example here somewhere.
Like my mind's just popping off on this SUDA thing. 941 in the UTC 6, and that's where the CFO would be able to, if he didn't know, where he could find his FUTA and SUDA or SUDA.
See, like, take a look at this guy, Fred Burton. He was quoted by a PEO through PEO Depot. This is what the PEO Depot quotes look like.
Okay.
And let me shrink it down to. As you see, they're just quoting workers' comp and admin. So there's the workers' comp and admin costs.
But is that including the FUTA and SUDA too? No.
Nothing.
Still
So you got
low.
to go down here and you look. Here's and then here's where they're quoting about 1.79 SUDA here. See, but now we don't know if there's cutoffs or not. That's when you got to ask.
FICA wasn't on your slide before.
Yeah, it is. It was Social Security and Medicare.
Is it? Oh, so that's, you got to, okay.
Yeah. See, the federal income tax is actually just taken from the employee's portion.
Okay.
What's that, Ted? You're looking at something on your screen. Do you want to share your screen?
He did.
No, I was
stepping
to the restroom. I was trying to be tactful.
He waits till you leave, and then he gives us really good insight.
But as you can see that they have, so this is all quoted separately down here. This is what we see now. Here's the.
So you'd have to add the two.
Yeah, well, you're going to pay this plus this every payroll. And
Every
then there's
payroll.
these things, like there's a minimum admin fee of 75.
Well, work site employee leasing, they don't charge for all that.
Well, they say that.
Oh no.
Yeah. You should be aware of that, that John claims a lot of things.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
That's why we got you, Tenny.
I mean, that's why I don't send anything to him anymore. I really don't.
Why
I really
not?
loved that. When he sent me that, we don't charge any fees. We charge no delivery. We charge no extra fees.
You
We
think
just
that's
charge
all
the admin.
BS?
And then I put a client with him, and they were calling up the client all the time, trying to get him to pay extra money for things.
Are you serious?
I don't lie. There's no reason for me to lie. I just don't use them anymore.
But aren't they hooked up with PEO Depot?
Yeah, they are. I just don't send it to them. I have control of who I can send it to.
How many of those do you not send to though, John?
How many are on my don't send list?
Yes.
Just a few.
Okay, because I just want to make
Yeah.
sure we don't miss
But
opportunities.
I had it because I had a personal run-in with him. I thought when he sent me that thing and he met me at the staffing
Yeah, but
conference.
John, I from my perspective, all PEOs are like that, you know. That's all PEOs. That's been my experience. They're all, I mean, except Ted.
You know, there's a lot to that because I used to think it was about 50-50, but it's not.
It's not. No way.
I'd say a third of the PEOs are reliable and accountable.
That's probably right.
Another third are just criminal, and another
Criminal.
third are just incompetent.
Correct.
mean,
I would
just-
probably put it lower than a third, but that's
well, I'm
fine.
trying to be generous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Southeast, everybody talks about Southeast. I don't think they're criminal, but they are very incompetent. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing there.
But you send it to them, don't you?
If that's the only place that it can go, but I'll tell
Yeah.
people, get ready to deal with Southeast.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's what I will tell you. For as bad as they are, for some reason, the clients, a lot of clients that got stuck with them really like their system in terms of the ease of use.
Well, the automated system, you mean?
I don't know. I've never been on it.
You know,
I do ask questions. Just the feedback I've gotten.
all the PEOs have a great portal, some nice software to work with. But when it comes down to it, when you can't fix something from the portal, how long does it take you to get a person to fix it?
Right.
That's another thing that we offer is that we will help fix it. That's why you want a broker. It's just why you don't go to Geico for insurance, because you want an agent who can help you, right? So you don't go direct to a PEO. Would you go direct to an insurance carrier? Yeah, a lot of people do. Then who helps you when it breaks?
John Tenney.
Well, if I'm the PEO broker, yeah, I can go in. I mean, I know most of these guys. I know where the bodies are buried, you know? I've gotten drunk.
You
I've
know
got
where
a
Brett
broker-
Masters is.
I have seen them drunk and doing terrible things at NAPIO conferences, you know? Ted's not laughing, you notice?
Oh, I'm laughing.
But that's true. Is
Hey,
it
I
true?
went
though?
to one NAPIO in Texas, and I can account for everything you're saying. Yes.
Did you go to the risk transfer party? Of course you
I didn't
did.
go to that one, no, because we had our own Liberace party.
Okay, well then you've seen how the people act. I mean,
Well, it's like Playboy
I have
Mansion.
pictures.
It's like the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah, I have pictures I can send. You know, I could.
I don't need them. I got my own.
So when I call, you know, and take the total.
God, come on, let's get. What's next? I want to learn more. I'm like a little sponge.
I hope Matt's staying with us.
My wife would say a big sponge.
Yes. Let me back up. I skipped a few things.
Where you at?
I'm going to admin fee.
Ooh, let's talk about this.
They're quoted as a percentage, but it's estimated based on the annual fee.
Okay, so questions.
Yes.
Ed, John, what is the percentage you guys look for admin in a quote? What are you guys typically looking for?
How many? How big's the client? How many employees? What's the
15
payroll?
employees.
30 employees?
15.
15 employees, and how much are they getting paid? Are they getting paid a lot?
Yeah.
Well, if they're all white collar, I would say that the admin fee is usually going to be pretty low. It's going to be under 2%.
Okay.
But Will, he's asking you the cost per employee.
Well, it's right there.
Mike, I go $100 a month per employee, regardless of the payroll.
Okay. And so Ted, you talk about per employee cost so a lot. Do you drive it down to per employee a lot?
Depending on the client, if they're with Insperity or TriNet or ADP Total Source, yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, the PEO wants to make most of them are right around the $1,000, $1,200 range, like Ted said, a year per employee. So
They want to make just so they want to make between 1,000 to 1,500 per employee on average.
Admin. Now they're not keeping all that. Remember,
on
they're paying us
admin.
some of it. Yeah, that's just admin only. They have other profit centers, but admin is their main profit center. And of course, they're paying some of that out.
Wait, I'm confused. Ted just said $100 per employee on admin. You just said 1,000 to 1,500.
He said 100 a month. I'm
Annually.
saying 1,000 to 1,500 a year.
Oh, you're saying, okay, I got you. All right. Fair. Okay.
Yeah.
So at a $33,000 employee, I need 3%. If they make $48,000, I need 2%. If they make $80,000 a year, I need 1%. 1% admin.
Or 1.2, something
The
like
higher
that.
they make, the lower the admin.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And commission wise, do you guys try to push commission on admin and comp, or what do you guys
We're
try to get?
We're getting up to the final lesson. Can you hold on that for a minute?
Yes.
I am going to go into that. But let's
I'm
talk
very
about the
interested
admin.
in that.
Things that affect the admin. Obviously, if they're in those states, the admin's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, Cal, Illinois, New York. Yep.
All those Democrat strongholds, the admin's very expensive.
Can you charge extra as a PEO broker for HR services outside of the PEO?
Can you or should you?
Yes. Yes.
The answer is yes and maybe.
Oh, no.
I mean, yeah, you can. I mean, we have an employer's risk assessment we go in and do. It's $400. But a lot of times I'll just do it. I'll say, look, you pay me the $400 and I'll credit it to you on your first PEO bill.
Gotcha.
Mike, there's a business to be had going in and being an HR consultant. There is.
Yes.
But it's work for dollars. It's hours for dollars.
It's more consulting.
Right. And we're not in this business for that. We're in the business for the residual income. Right?
No doubt. Me too.
So I'm saying you can do it, but is it worth? A lot of times I'll throw that in. I have a brewery.
So what you're saying is you outsource it or you do it?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I hired Jennifer Caraway to go in and talk to Sanford Brewing about sexual harassment. And I didn't charge them. I just paid for it. I gave her $200 to go in and do a 2-hour thing on sexual harassment.
Gotcha.
And just because I wanted them to feel like they're getting something.
Perfect.
So okay, let's look at that's admin fee.
Okay.
Now the comp charge, of course, all this. You're both agents, so we really don't need to get into this. The only thing I want to tell you is that the PEO can charge whatever they want for comp in any state.
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want, because they are technically not charging comp premium.
Do they have to use their mod?
They can use whatever they want.
Oh.
What?
They can use whatever they want.
They don't have to use their mod.
They don't have to use anything.
Even if they're on a guaranteed cost comp policy, they can charge whatever they want?
How many PEOs are on a guaranteed cost policy?
Several.
Not what you and I think of as a guarantee. It might be a guaranteed cost policy, but there's a huge stock company discount. They've got their own internal mod. Nobody's paying 100% of comp premium.
No one.
No PEOs are.
There's no direct correlation between the PEO's comp charges and what they bill their client.
Yeah.
I completely understand now. Thank you.
There's no legal connection, so they can charge whatever they want. I just want to make sure
I was 100% clear on that. And that's good information. All right.
So you know what administrative and loss cost is. Now, there is an exception. Now, New York, take for example. New York, everybody has to have their own policy and they have to keep track of their own mod.
Keep talking. I can hear you.
Yeah, so they have to report all comp payments and mod information in New York by client. So that's New York.
Is that just in the city, Will, or is that in
No,
the state?
no, the whole state.
Okay.
It's been Cuomo-sexuals.
Right.
So, was talking about master. Does the PEO provide comp? People will ask, is the PEO going to provide comp? And we got to be careful how they answer that. And Matt, you are an insurance agent, so you are got to be very careful how you answer that because your E&O relies on it, and it is a guarded yes. You provide comp for the employees of the PEO. And so if the employer moves employees over to the PEO, those employees are covered on comp. The corporation is not. It's important that they realize that. That's what's called the PEO gap. Is if, say, ABC Incorporated puts all their employees with Joe's PEO, and ABC hires subcontractors, and the subcontractor gets hurt and doesn't have comp, they're going to sue ABC Incorporated, and the PEO comp does not cover it. It only covers the employees of ABC, not subcontractors.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me that, well, comp doesn't cover subcontractors anyway. Yeah, but the lawyers always try to make it cover it.
Well, they do actually.
So just remember that the PEO just charges for employer services. They don't charge for comp. They're required to put their employees on comp. That's how they get covered. It's a nice little, what do you call it? It's a way to get around the rules. All right. We talked about cutoffs. Food and Suitor is 7,000.
Will, can
It's
I add
for FUTA too. It's for both FUTA and SUTA.
Yes.
There's a cutoff.
Go ahead, Ted.
going back to what you said, PEOs do not sell healthcare. But if the employees come on the PEO payroll, they're allowed to buy into the PEO's healthcare.
That's correct.
But PEOs are not a reseller of healthcare.
That's right. By the way, look at these are the SUTA cutoffs. Look at Washington.
Wow. What? Wait. Wow. Holy crap. Look at Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa's 30,000.
Iowa screws everything up. They
Well,
screw
Washington's the
everything.
highest at 50,000.
Iowa and Illinois. Look at Illinois, though. Huh.
Yeah,
So that's-
Illinois is up there. California's only 7, which is surprising.
I don't understand that.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous. Is it because the wages are so high there? Probably. Yeah.
you can look this up, by the way. I'll get the copy of the recording. Okay, there's the Florida SUTA rate. We talked about that. You were getting to this a little bit. PEOs have multiple companies within their group license, so they have different SUTA rates.
Yeah.
Like they've got one that's at a 0.1, and they put all the low risk stuff for that one.
Yeah.
And they buy shells. Like I've sold shells to PEOs before. As a company that I just sit there and run payroll on for 2.5 years and get it down to 0.1. You think that's funny, Ted?
It's what I invented.
Oh, you invented that?
The SUTA shuffle was our invention.
Yeah, and I sold several shells.
John, when are PEOs all going to accept agent of record letters?
Never.
Why?
Oh, well, I'll fight it for one thing. I mean, I got into this for long-term income. I don't want people stealing my clients.
I want to steal people's clients.
I know you do. That's your AOR insurance. Yeah, I know.
That's our model.
But you move them to a different PEO. That's all.
Not necessarily. What we try to do under an AOR model is to take over the current situation and improve the service platform.
I understand your model, but in the PEO industry, the only way to do it is to move them to another PEO.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now,
Are you saying agent of record for their PNC?
no, for the PEO.
Oh, it'd be such an awesome disruptive model.
Yeah, it'd be disruptive, all right.
So AOR change for the PEO?
You would
Wow.
What's wrong with that?
You'd get
Well,
death
yeah.
threats. You would get death threats if you
It's
I
called
would-
theft.
I would be going, all my clients would immediately sign everything over right now.
Now, I went to I had a client come to me and say this PEO is doing a bad job and the broker's nowhere to be found. And I called up the PEO and said, these guys want to be, they're not getting service right. They said, well, it's through a broker. I go, who's the broker? Let me talk to them. And they didn't want to tell me at first. I said, well, all right, I'll ask the client. They go, all right, no, it's this guy. So I called up the guy. I said, listen, one of your clients has come to me wanting me to fix their PEO problems. And he said, all right, why are you calling me? I said, well, I'm not going to just sit there and move them to another PEO because that sticks you in the back. But why aren't you answering their calls? He goes, they haven't called me. I said, did you get a new phone recently? Oh, well, yeah, I did. Do they know your new phone number? Well, it's on my website. So he got back together with the client and he helped out the client and he made them happy and made them whole. And then he called me up and said, I want to thank you. I'm going to give you a 1/4 point on this for helping me out. So I get a 1/4 point for that client every month just because I made a phone call. All right. So that's the closest you're going to get to an AOR, I think. Now,
Except engage will take them.
oh,
so-
really?
It's in their contract, yes.
That's why I don't want anything to do with Engage then.
They'll do an AOR change? They'll
Yeah.
change brokers on a current account?
Yep, it's in their contract.
Then I'll
Well,
never do business with them.
it's a good thing that they signed our contract and we don't sign theirs.
Well, I do business with them though.
Well, and then oh geez, I'm going to go ask them to switch all your clients over to me then.
Well, I think they do a relatively good job, but I mean that's their contract. I haven't had an issue with them personally.
I don't like AORs, man. I know that's your model, but I don't like that.
It's okay.
I've never gotten business from an AOR. I've just lost business from an AOR. And undeservedly so too, just because somebody was being dirty.
Look, I'm not being dirty about the way AOR, by the way. But anyways, that's just my model.
All right, I don't ever see PEOs quoting a 0.1 suit anymore. And it's because of Ted's work and dumping legislation, people are afraid to quote that.
Okay.
And also it's an additional profit center, and that's to compete with the ADPs and Insperities. They come in with a lower admin fee now. I mean, you used to see 5 and 6% admin fee all the time. Now it's very rare to see anything as high as a 4. But the SUDA's gone up. They're charging the SUDA, so they're still getting the same VIG.
What's a VIG?
That's an Italian word. Basically, it means like when you
A spread.
it's your override. So anyway, we talked about that. Okay, there are setup fees, certificate deposits, deductible deposits,
You gotta
additional
watch,
fees.
those deductible deposits. They sneak those in sometimes too.
Well, see, this is why, I used to get paid a percent of admin fee. They'd give me 40% of admin, PEO would. And then I'd look and see, well, the admin would go lower, but all these other fees stayed the same.
Yeah.
It's just like you're an agent. You know what an expense constant is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a way for the insurance company to make money without paying you.
Correct.
By the way, if you ever been, if one of your clients ever been audited and had to pay additional premium,
Of course.
did you get a commission?
Yes.
Wow, I never have. They always tell me that audit premium is not subject to commission. However, clawbacks are. They're always out to screw the agent. And just the way they're trying to screw the broker too. PEOs love us when we bring them business. They hate us when they write us checks. Okay?
Right.
So
I get it.
that's why we don't get paid on percent of admin fee anymore if we can avoid it. We get paid on a percent of payroll.
Is that so? That's the commission structure that you go for is percent of payroll.
Yep, and I like that because they can't mess with it. It just keeps everybody honest.
What do you go for? Usually 1%, 2%?
Depending on the size of the client, anywhere between 0.7 to 3.
Wow.
I mean, if it's a little client, there's only 2 people.
Wow.
I've seen 3% commissions before. But then there's that one I did in California recently, which, was 5 million in payroll. I just took 0.7.
Gotcha.
Now I'm splitting that too with an agent. So, but our standard commission is 1%, 1.5%, something like that. I don't like charging a lot. I didn't do the 3. That was Chad. That was one of my agents. She did that. He got it. So good for him. Hello.
Yeah, I like the percent of payroll too. That's awesome.
This is Ted.
Matt, that's $1 million of payroll. That's 10,000 commish. Of course, once John gets his hands all over it, you'll have nothing.
So just to review, I told you what the standard expenses are, what we deal with the FUTA, SUTA, the admin comp, and additional fees, SUTA adjustments based on the employment history, the different quoting styles, and don't let PEOs pay you from admin fees. Are there any questions on the left side there before we move on? And well, I'll do this on a lot of them. The tools, I don't ever give more than 1 quote, and I rarely give that. When I give quotes, I tell them that, like, I'm your mystery shopper. I'm going to go find the best thing for you. I'm your matchmaker. And when I find the best thing, I'm going to have your budget, and I'm going to call you up and tell you it's within your budget, it fixes your pain, and you're the decision maker. What do you want to do? The same reason why I avoid quoting and writing, because what do they do with a written quote?
They just share it. They screw you.
They shop it around.
Yeah,
Have you ever seen your competitor's quote? I have.
Especially on PEO.
I see other people's PEO quotes all the time.
I bet you do.
And one thing I remember, this number 4 here, are they willing to change to fix it? Because I run into this all the time. People tell me they got a problem, but they don't want to switch payroll systems.
John, so I recently had a deal that was a bar and tavern in Tampa. It was going through Hudson Bank for an SBA, and I quoted them comp and I quoted them a PEO, and they wanted to go with the PEO, and they could not because the Hudson Bank would not allow it.
What do you mean they wouldn't allow it?
I don't know. I'll have to send you the legal paperwork and everything on it, but they couldn't go with it.
The Hudson Bank just said.
That's what I was asking. Have you ever heard of that on like SBA?
Well, I've never heard of anybody required to have their payroll with the bank, unless they were in some sort of.
No, they weren't required to have their payroll with the bank. The bank would not approve them going with a PEO under the SBA loan.
I've had that happen before.
Okay.
But I've had it with regulated industries like mortgage brokers.
Okay.
Typically, it's somebody that doesn't understand the PEO model and what we do. They think we're using a staffing model. Yeah. And what they get hung up on is that they're permanent employees of the worksite employer. They don't allow the worksite employer to have their employees staffed, if you will. They must be permanent employees. So usually you can get around that with an explanation if you can find out who the roadblock is.
Yeah. I've run into it also where they say we can only go with the PEO if we're named insured on the comp policy.
So I just gave up on it and wrote their workers' comp, but it's because of a time issue. I just didn't dig into it.
Do you get people asking you to be named insured on the comp policy?
Do I?
Yeah.
I get them to be like additional named insured.
On the comp policy?
Yeah.
I always tell them that makes no sense. We're insuring employees.
I agree.
So I
they
tell
have
them,
they have a lawyer that doesn't know what they're asking for.
Yeah, it's somebody who doesn't understand. I mean, I get it for a liability policy. GL, you want to be additional name insured, but
Correct.
not on comp. And so usually I can just get a conversation with them and explain how it works.
Yeah.
I say, we will, or I'll send them a cert that has the name of the company on it.
Yeah, I think I got lazy on that one. But I think if I would have dug into it, I could have overcame the issue.
Okay.
Matt will do that going forward, hopefully.
Yeah, so that's when you get with people who ask stuff like that, just check with us. We can help you with that.
And there's one Matt called Rainmaker. Rainmaker, Matt. You want to write it down? That's like a couple of Pearl eye visions. I'm getting all these referrals from Hudson Bank, and so that will be one that we'll have to overcome. Just FYI.
Got it.
So just to review, when we're sending out a quote, like a lot of people like to see the bundled quote rate.
Yep.
Which is, this includes Social Security, Medicare, SUTA, FUTA, admin, and comp.
The overall percentage, yeah.
Well, the PEO Depot one just shows the two numbers. It shows the admin comp, and then it shows the social, the SUTA, and the FUTA. So
Okay.
then they can add it up. But I'll just tell them, I said, just expect that, you're, as a percentage of payroll, you're going to be spending, say, 20% of payroll for this. And they go, 20%? I go, like, remember, only 3 of that's for the PEO. The other 17 is for Uncle Sam and for the comp. You're going to pay that anyway. If you run your own payroll, you'll pay that through QuickBooks. Tell them. And you have to explain that to them sometimes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
So a lot of times they want it broken out. I mean, I remember this one guy, gosh, he was a spreadsheet fiend. I broke out a spreadsheet, and I had him estimate what his internal admin fee was as a percentage of payroll. And I actually convinced him that his internal admin fee was 4%. So I showed him what he was going to pay with a PEO that was giving a 4% admin fee. They were giving him a discount on SUTA, and they were giving him a 10% discount on comp. And he saw that he was paying less, and he said, okay, I'm paying less. I'll go with it. Because he was a guy that needed to know he was paying less. Even though I explained to him, you're never going to have to do all this stuff. What triggered him? What really set him off, he told me later, was the fact that he wouldn't have to deal with unemployment claims anymore. Because he had gotten a call from the Shaniqua LaFonda Rondaroo, or whatever her name is, from Tallahassee, who said, you have an unemployment claim from so-and-so. There's going to be a hearing. Will you be represented at the hearing? And he was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, represented. Now I got to get a lawyer. And he said, can I go myself? Says, well, they're on the telephone. Says, so I need to have my lawyer on the telephone. Says, well, most people feel it's a good idea to be represented. And that's a strong hint. He said, great. Okay, when's the hearing? He says, well, it'll be within the next 90 days. He goes, can I have a date? He says, well, you'll be notified 48 to 72 hours in advance. And he said, wait a minute. I got a cruise scheduled at the end of the month. I'll be out of the country. And this is before Wi-Fi was on cruise ships. I'll be out of reach. And he had to cancel his cruise to be on this phone call where this girl who had basically just stopped coming in, stopped working, didn't answer texts, phone calls, emails, nothing. She just went dark. And they agreed that she wasn't entitled to any more unemployment, but they didn't pull back what they'd already paid her. So, Ted, she was a small company, so that's going to knock his SUTA up, isn't it?
Yeah, because one claim can cost your unemployment account $6,000 to $8,000.
Yeah.
Your small employer, that could be half of your account balance. Next year, it's going to double.
Yeah, and that's what happened to him. And so he was so infuriated, he had to sit there and get on these calls. He says, by the way, they're at 6 o'clock in the morning. The hearings with the judge. At 6 o'clock in the morning. You didn't enjoy that.
But so that's probably a stupid question. Someone goes on unemployment, they file for unemployment, but then a month later they get a job. Does the old company, after they get a job, they don't have to pay unemployment anymore?
Well, if they report that they have a job. Ted, why don't you answer that one?
Each employer basically has a checking account at the state, and the state's writing checks out of your account for those unemployment benefits.
Okay.
The most important thing is not whether a person gets unemployment. The most important thing is whose account gets charged if benefits are allowed.
Okay.
I don't care who gets unemployment. I do care if the charges come out of my account.
Okay.
So it may sound like I'm splitting hairs, but if it's a lack of work, you're going to get charged for it. If somebody quits because they're pregnant and they can't do the job any longer, the state may allow benefits, but you get non-charging against your account. So if the person gets re-employed in Florida, there's no more drain on your unemployment account. That's typically the case. But you want to audit the charge statements and make sure they don't overcharge your account. If they file another unemployment claim, say 90 days down the road.
So they know if the person's actively employed again?
Yes.
So they do track the social?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people I know who are professional unemployment. They get a job, they get fired, they file unemployment, and then they go work under the books, off the books under the table.
Well, if they're out working for cash, they may not get caught, but they have to call in each week and verify that they're actively looking for work and they're available for work.
If they actually follow up on it.
Kind of like Brett Masters.
You keep going to that. You love that guy, don't you?
I just like to see like your face when I say his name.
There's people I dislike more than him.
I know a number of unemployment or PEO people that have served time in jail from how they manage their PEO.
Yeah, we know a lot of people.
I'm sure.
We know many people who have been guests of the state of California or Florida. Yeah. So in fact, some of them are still running PEOs and they're actually doing a pretty good job. They were the fall guys.
After
they were the ones.
They got better, Matt, after they went to jail. It always like a freaking wake-up call, doesn't it?
Well, Ted Rawls. Ted Rawls went to jail.
Need to go to jail.
Ted Rawls went to jail because he took Mike Miller's advice.
Who's Mike Miller?
Mike Miller is the attorney that literally wrote the book on PEO law in Florida. I mean, he wrote the regulations. His advice
put someone in jail.
Well, he told him that he could use this unadmitted carrier for his PEO, which was Core Employer Solutions. Do you remember this, Ted?
Yeah, I had nobody with them, but I remember.
Yeah, they were using an unadmitted carrier. It's back when, like in the early 2000s, when there were no carriers. Nobody was writing PEOs. They were all scared.
Yeah.
And he was using this unadmitted carrier that was an offshore, something like Reliant Enterprises or something from Bermuda.
Yeah.
And Michael said, he went to Mike, he said, am I going to get in trouble? He says, well, no, because they're paying claims, so you're okay. So one thing I found out in this country is you can break into someone's house, you can kill the dog, you can beat up the kids, you can rape the wife, you can make off with the TV and the safe and all the guns, and you got about a 50-50 chance of getting away with it.
That's just.
But if you mess with the government and their money, you're going to jail.
Yeah, IRS.
And since the IRS wasn't collecting tax on this money, on the premium that was going to this Bermuda corporation, the IRS got involved and they came in and they charged him with insurance fraud for using an unadmitted carrier. And he spent 2 years at Eglin, which is the country club prison, but still, he was in prison for 2 years as a guest of the state of Florida. So, and all he did was follow his attorney's advice. Okay, before we go, I always ask for lessons learned, and this is because I want you to recap what you've learned today. It increases retention by 50%.
I'm ready.
Let's go ahead, Mike.
I took a good sales tip from you about asking for referrals from people that screwed me over in the sales process. I learned a ton about SUTA and unemployment claims, and the fact that the PEO basically takes that liability of employment claims away from the business. I learned about the different SUTA rates per state, per PEO, and the fact of the 5 factors that our structure helps with. And one of the ones that I think is huge is the hiring and firing risk mitigation of onboarding and unboarding employees. I learned
Offboarding, by the way. I think they call that
offboarding.
offboarding.
Sorry, offboarding.
Yeah.
I found out that the payroll, the IRS letter is the biggest risk. I found out where to find the SUTA percentage for an employee, the UTC 6 and the 941.
Mostly the UTC 6. That's what you want to ask me. Yeah.
UTC 6. I learned that it might be a good idea to break cost on a per employee basis when we're looking at things and consulting potentially to these clients.
Basically, you took notes on everything I said. And Ted, too.
You'd be surprised.
Ted's still there. He must be getting a phone
I
call.
might surprise you, Johnny boy.
Hello,
I
Barry.
might surprise you.
Okay.
And then I learned that that both FUTA and SUTA, I didn't know this, have the 7,000 cutoff. I learned that some PEOs do implement the cutoff, some don't. And then I learned about the different commission factors that we really push a percentage of payroll, which is way better than the way I've been brokering it in the past. But I agree with you. I think that's the way to go. I learned a ton.
We're 2 old guys who learned a lot by being kicked around.
Yeah,
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
We've been kicked around so many times. We know we still got the foot marks on our butt. So
I want to do more of this.
okay, Matt, what about you? I mean, I know that Mike just basically recanted.
I was going to say, I don't know that there's a note that I took that wasn't just.
Oh no, is there a takeaway? Something you're going to walk away? What do you do different?
Yeah, I think just in general for me, it's more probably a little more high level than for you 3. But just I guess the most valuable thing I'm taking away is just kind of more of a higher level understanding of where the PEO makes sense and where it doesn't. I think for us specifically, the restaurant industry is something we're going to be heavily targeting and getting in the door through the PEO. Obviously, we want to the P&C in the end as well, but a lot of this makes sense. Just the high turnover, the unemployment claims as it relates to the restaurant industry. I think it helps. It gives me a better ability to pitch it, explain it. I think like Mike said, I think the way a PEO can, I don't know if manipulate is the right word, but and the take away the liability on the SUTA, I think is a big deal when it comes to, I agree with Mike. I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you can explain that well, I would just imagine that's going to work. So I think the aspect of, when you're speaking to a restaurant owner about not having the requirement to handle unemployment claims, I think that probably plays pretty well from a pain standpoint for especially guys who are maybe running some bigger operations that have had experience in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be where I'm coming from.
So if you go to employernomics.com and you look under who we are, there's a capability statement. Okay. It will pull up this page. And those are those 5 things I told you about today. It particularly with a 1, 3, and 5 are going to matter a lot to a restaurant. Workers' comp, they usually don't have problems getting. Sometimes they do. And employee benefits, very, very few restaurants want to give health care to their employees. Now, some of them might want to give some kind of bonus, like an Aflac or something, but the 1, 3, and 5 are the big items. You want to keep those when you're doing your 30-second commercial. If you're, in a situation where you're telling people who don't know what you do, you can basically read that verbatim, and it takes about 45 seconds to read those 3 paragraphs.
Will, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Mini med plans are coming back.
I've seen that. There's that Aflac one that's out now. Have you seen that?
Well, Aflac sucks. There's some other decent plans out there that are not Aflac. Aflac is specific to an incident. The mini meds are more like a traditional healthcare, but they have limited coverage.
Yeah, that's why when I put in there, I don't put health. I say healthcare including insurance.
Yeah.
Safety and wellness. So, but if you were just to read that paragraph, we work with employers, help them reduce the cost for having employees, blah, blah, blah. You can leave out that second one if you want. The 5 areas concentrate are HR, work comp, risk management, employee benefits, payroll, and taxes. At least then people, and then you describe, I'm trying to describe the people that have those pains. Are you at risk for an employee issue? You got a hassle every year with your workers' comp? Have you had unemployment or HR claims? Or you got any safety issues? So what I want to do is describe our perfect prospect. So if somebody hears somebody talking or sees something happen, they go, you should probably talk to AOR HR, AOR Employer Solutions, or Employernomics, or somebody about getting a PEO. Well, that's it. That's it. We are at 10:30. And so there's one more thing I just want to go into here. Basically, next week, what you need to know when you finally somebody who is a prospect, what information you want to gather. In other words, what are they going to ask you for later? Because obviously we want to minimize the impact on our clients when we're collecting information. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
go
That's
sell.
Absolutely.
Mike, and you and I need to get together someday.
Of course. Yep. This week's good for me. All very good. Thank you so much. Look forward to meeting with you, John. Hey, Matt, I'm going to go get my mop cut, and I'll talk to you right after that.
Sounds good.
Rock and roll, man.
Cool.
We'll talk soon. Later.
All right, Ted, thanks for helping out.
All right.
See you all next week.
See you guys. Mm-hmm.